You know, I have to be super careful with how I talk about this topic because it's only so common that we have an expansion team that is in the league and doing a thing, and the fans, it's all about the fans. The fans in Seattle. I have family in Seattle personally myself, so I have a very big soft spot for the Seattle Kraken. But despite that fact, there still are some things we need to talk about when it comes to this team. If you're a Seattle fan and you don't really know what we do, hello, I'm Lego Rock99. I make commentary videos based off of different NHL teams. My favorite teams are the Canucks because I live here in Vancouver. Montreal and the Red Wings are my second and third favorite teams. I like a few other teams. I like a lot of prospects. I like trade rumors and whatnot. So this is pretty much the channel where I go out here and I vent all of my own personal opinions and things about hockey. And it just so happens that your team is on the chopping block here in this video because yesterday I saw your game against the Colorado Avalanche. Okay, maybe not the entire game. I saw parts of it because I was watching mostly Vancouver-Winnipeg. For some reason, Vancouver ended up winning, which was cool. But the other game that was on last night at 7 p.m. PST was Seattle versus Colorado. It was a notable one because one Philipp Grubauer was going up there and playing against his former team. Last season, if you take a look at Philipp Grubauer in the Colorado system, he was one of the best gosh darn goaltenders in the entire NHL. He had 40 games played, so he played most of the games. You gotta remember, last season, it was a 56-game schedule. He had a 1.95 goals against average and a 9.22 save percentage. He was 39-1, which was good enough to put him as... Where was he here in the list? He was the 10th best goaltender in the NHL in overall save percentage, and in goals against, he was third. So even though Colorado was a good team, you had a really good goaltender in net, cementing that solid positioning, and he was a Vezina finalist for a reason, man. He was a finalist for the best goaltender in the league award, as voted by NHL media people and all that. And so, when he became a free agent, Colorado Avalanche fans were super scared because, okay, we don't have enough money to keep this guy based off of the caliber of talent that he possesses, and we kind of want to remain a competitive team. That's when Joe Sakic ended up getting fleeced in the Darcy Kuemper trade. Okay, maybe it wasn't really fleeced per se, but it was certainly this is somewhat of a surprising trade kind of trade with the Arizona Coyotes, where they ended up getting Darcy Kuemper, who played yesterday and who was pretty good. He's been very good during his time in Arizona. It's just you didn't really get to see that because Arizona doesn't really get the media spotlight. So Colorado got their replacement in Darcy Kuemper. Philipp Grubauer went to free agency. He signed with the Seattle Kraken on a contract that, it's pretty beefy. $5.9 million a season till 2027. If he plays like we know he is capable of playing, which is like a Vezina caliber #1 goaltender in the league, this could be seen as an absolute steal of a contract. However, as we're going to explore further in this video, it doesn't really look like that's the case. The backup for the Seattle Kraken right now is Chris Driedger, who was also a goaltender who was very hot last year. A .927 save percentage and a .207 goals against in 23 games played. This was the guy that was making things really difficult for the Florida Panthers as to whether or not you would maybe trade, buy out Sergei Bobrovsky, bring up Spencer Knight, and use this guy in your system who is a young prospect. Chris Driedger just came out of nowhere. He was an AHL, ECHL guy for a good chunk of his career, eventually making the NHL full-time in 2019-20 and establishing himself in 2020-2021 as a lot more than just an AHL, ECHL guy. He went 14-6-3, was an absolute stud, was also a top goaltender in the NHL in save percentage. He was 5th overall, just behind Fleury, Varlamov, Nedeljkovic, and Jeremy Swayman. So this guy was really good too. However, he got picked up by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft and eventually was sent over to the new team. He was given the jersey, he visited the Sound, it was all cool seeing this guy, and heading into the season, everybody was like, okay, cool, Chris Driedger is fantastic, and they just signed Philipp Grubauer in free agency as well. This team is going to be unstoppable defensively. As long as these goaltenders could be average, this team could be very, very dangerous. But as we have seen from JFresh Hockey on the advanced analytics side of things, the goaltenders haven't been average. In fact, they've been extraordinarily below average to the point where they are some of the worst goaltenders in the NHL in some of the fancy stats. Here are some of the things we're focusing on. This is what JFresh posted when it comes to lowest goals saved above expected for November 20th. What this means is, if you have a rating that is negative, it means that you are letting in more goals that probably should have been saved. Now, I know it's easy to say, okay, but every goal should be saved. No. That's not what we're talking about here. You know what kind of goals should be saved? On the rush, 5-hole floater wrist shots. You know what kind of goals should be saved? Clear looks to the net where the goalie has time to prepare, focus on the shooter, focus on the shot, and it still beats him at a bad angle. Those are the types of goals that should be saved. Not crazy 3-on-1 passing plays where somebody busts out a big dangle. It's not really the same. So the advanced analytics very much distinguishes what kind of goals probably should be stopped by goaltenders, and this stat, goals saved above expected, sorted by lowest to highest, notes which goalies are very bad at their job. And right now, Philipp Grubauer is in the lead with a rating of -15. Second last is Carter Hutton, third last Khudobin on the Stars, and Georgiev, Casey DeSmith on the Penguins, and then you have Chris Driedger too, at 78th overall in the NHL for goaltenders. This is not good, and what it means is that they're letting in a lot of goals that they probably should not be letting in based off of the quality of the chances. All the other advanced stats kind of tell the same story. Philipp Grubauer is last in the NHL when it comes to starting goaltender goals saved above expected. Meaning the same thing, but it's flipped in reverse. You could see that Bobrovsky is the best goaltender who saves the most pucks that probably should have been goals per 60 minutes in the NHL, and Grubauer is dead last at a -1.2 rating. You could see the variance is really big. Like, the halfway mark, you're only at a 0.3. And then eventually you get to a 0.1 and a 0.0 and then a -1 or a -0.3, and Grubauer is so far down there. And it's kind of a shame because all the other stats that Jay Fresh tweeted out talk about how the Seattle Kraken actually have a pretty good, goal-scoring capability comparative to being, last in the league for goaltenders. They're not last when it comes to creating offense. And when it comes to that metric, you have to take a look at it and say, darn, this team really is losing out on a few more games than they probably should because the goaltending just hasn't been great. And it's something that you notice with Philipp Grubauer even back in his Colorado days. Sure, this year, you see him letting in a whole bunch of 5-hole goals on the rush. It's not really solid. The goaltending that Grubauer has provided, definitely not at the caliber of a Vezina reigning runner-up right here. I mean, the guy has an .875 save percentage and a .327 goals against. That's really bad for a starting goaltender in the NHL. Chris Driedger, hey, he's even worse. He had a really good .927 last year. This year he's at a .791. I rarely see save percentages creep in to the 7 range, and his goals against average is almost at 5. That sucks, dude. How the hell do you get this bad in a year? This is a post on the Seattle Kraken subreddit from an Avalanche fan. I wanted to read this out to you just to get a little bit of a framework as to how Colorado fans are experienced with the Grubauer conundrum. Sure, Grubauer was great last year, but there still are some things to focus on that I think are highlighted in this post by BMW M3 for me. It is quite shocking to see Grubauer's slow start this year, but I'm not totally surprised by this Avalanche fan says. The last few years with the Avalanche, he played extremely well when his defensive lines are intact. I can recall several stretches during the last 2 seasons where he was very shaky when we got hit with a slew of injuries, especially when Erik Johnson went down. If the Kraken can get a solid 1 to 2 lines in front of him, he will perform so much better than what he has shown so far. Keep in mind, this guy was a finalist last year behind our sketchy defense. And so, for Philipp Grubauer, it's not really the most unexpected thing to see him completely crap the bed like this from the perspective of this Avalanche fan. Whether or not you agree or disagree, that's your call. Hey, comment section is your floor. That is why it exists, to give your opinions out there. But when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, guys, it's an 82-game year. I was talking about this with my folks down there in Seattle too, but they don't really understand the magnitude of what it means to win and lose a game at this point in the season because they're so used to watching NFL football where you only have 16 games on the year. Every win, every loss is extremely important. It's not like that in hockey, unfortunately, until you get to January, February, March. That's when things really start to pick up. But early on in the season, November-ish territory, especially for an expansion team that's currently last in the Pacific, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, you probably would have had a lot more wins on this season had the goaltending just been average at best. But this is the hand you're dealt with. All you got to do is look at the cards, acknowledge the cards, and try to figure out the best way to go about things. Talk to me in the comments. What do you think about the Seattle Kraken and their goaltending? What the heck happened here? If you have any hypotheses, Is that the plural version of hypothesis? I'm not really too sure. If you have any thoughts that you would like to share about this goaltending tandem, if you're a Florida Panthers fan, give me your 2 cents about Chris Driedger. If you're an Avs fan, talking about Philipp Grubauer, or if you're a Kraken fan, let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this particular Ash Rolls 99. And bye.